A new Netflix docuseries about Sean Diddy Combs is making headlines for its never-before-seen footage of the music mogul in the days before his arrest. Now, Combs is threatening legal action against the streamer for airing the unauthorized footage. Behind the series is Combs' longtime rap rival 50 Cent and director Alexandria Stapleton, who sat down with NBC News' Chloe Malas ahead of tonight's release.
Another banger details from Gone Deal. Guys, he just went public with evidence about Tupac's shooting that 50 Cent refused to put in his Netflix documentary. We're talking about $1 million check. Proof that Diddy knew Tupac will be shot and the real story behind Big E's murder. This is the information that was too dangerous for Netflix. But you're about to hear all of it right now. Look, I know you clicked on this video because you heard Gone Deal is dropping bombs that 50 Cent didn't want anyone to see. And trust me, you made the right choice. So without wasting time, here's what's going down. 50 Cent just sold his Diddy documentary to Netflix for millions of dollars. Everyone in the hip-hop world expected Gone Deal to be the main guy in it. Why? Because Gone was Diddy's personal bodyguard back in the day, and he's been the loudest person exposing bad boy secrets for years now. He was there when everything went down. But when the documentary dropped, Gone was nowhere to be found. Not a single interview, not one clip, nothing.
I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about you got footage, you got clothing, I was doing footage, I had pictures, all the stuff that I had, you could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff. The first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. If you can make a picture look like $10,000, $15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're gonna pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another, and I was like, yeah, all right, well then, F you, I spoke to 50. And then she said 50, and this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this document.
And now Gene is telling the world exactly why he's not in it. He's revealing footage, conversations, and evidence that 50 Cent completely censored from the final cut. And honestly, when you hear what he's saying, you'll understand why 50 might have been scared to include it. In this video, you're going to discover the real reason Gone Deal walked away from the documentary. You'll hear about the day Diddy knew Tupac was about to get shot and did nothing to stop it. You'll learn about $1 million check that Gene saw with his own eyes that connects directly to Tupac's murder. And you'll get the full story of how Big E's murder was set up, including the warnings Gone gave that everyone ignored. This is big. So let's get into it. Before we dive into Gone's leaked evidence, let me show you something far more interesting. Now, this series was supposed to be over 10 episodes allegedly, but 50 Cent just dropped a 4-part Netflix series called Diddy. The reckoning with never-before-seen footage filmed days before Diddy's arrest. Now, we're talking private conversations with his lawyers, him greeting fans in Harlem, all the behind-the-scenes stuff nobody's ever seen, which was pretty okay. The documentary was supposed to expose everything Diddy did, every crime, every cover-up. But according to Gone Deal, it left out the most important stuff. So who's Gone Deal? Diddy's former bodyguard during the peak bad boy years. He was right there during the East Coast versus West Coast beef. He was in Vegas the night Tupac got shot. He was in L.A. the night Biggie got murdered. Gene saw it all firsthand, and now Gene's not staying quiet anymore. He's leaking everything. So let's get into what he's revealing. All right. So the first question everyone's asking is simple. Why isn't Gene Deal in this documentary?
Jake. Wolf was not the gunman who killed Jake, and Mark Curry knows that to be true. You understand? And East Coast War was more like Helena of Troy. When Puff got mad at Suge for being out there and allowing Misa to come out there to make money, however she was doing it, to feed her family, he vowed down that it's like, yo, I ain't never fucking with her again, and I ain't never fucking with him again. Puff and Suge had a conversation behind the House of Blues about was we all right, and Tupac was alive. Tupac wasn't dead. So if it was a war, Suge ain't having no conversation with Puff about we good. I know he could be doing a Hoboken hustle, trying to fool a brother, but had he killed my man or some shit like that, I wouldn't have no conversation with Puff. I'd been like, yo, you know what y'all niggas done? You know what happened? And it wasn't no conversation like that, brother. It wasn't no conversation whereas that, Suge made Puff feel like I'm gonna get you a payback for what happened to Jake. This was more so that Puff, for whatever reason, Suge, for whatever reason he was mad at Puff, and Puff, for whatever reason he was mad at Suge. It was between them two. It wasn't no whole East Coast wanted the West Coast dead, and the West Coast wanted East Coast to dead, because they still was going out, still chilling, still at places with each other. It was Bad Boy, and it was Death Row. It was no East Coast and no West Coast. West Coast dudes were still coming out on the East Coast getting love. East Coast niggas was still going out on the West Coast getting love. It was Bad Boy versus Death Row. And that's what it was, bro. And it was because of the two CEOs. But Suge tried to straighten it out. I got to get at the Suge. The Death Row East Coast was going to bring in Eric B. It was going to bring in Big D. And those brothers was from the East Coast. So now they was looking for a representative to come to the meeting from Bad Boy so they could straighten out the shit between Pac and Big and Death Row and Bad Boy. And Puff is the one who refused. Puff is the one to refuse to send a representative or either come himself, and got mad at Zip and them because they were in the Mirage on 57th Street partying with Suge Knight. Got mad at them, and Zip hung up the phone on behind that.
But what you mean by Mark Curry? He know who killed Big J?
It was some Jamaican dude from the Bronx. He's dead now. The police ended up killing him at Magic City. I don't know his name. But Mark Curry know that it wasn't Wolf.
But when I was looking at the documentary, Kirk Burroughs, he did confirm that Big, he didn't want to go to LA. And they was actually getting warnings not to go to LA. But, Diddy, he wanted to go, man.
My man, yeah, we must have had warnings, man. I didn't know. I knew that we shouldn't be out there in the first place.
Gunn recently did an interview where he explained exactly what happened. He was actually working with the documentary team at first. They wanted his footage, his stories, everything. But then Gene had a conversation with the director, Alex Stapleton. That changed everything. According to Gone, she basically told him that 50 Cent had no control over the payments or the content. She made it clear that 50 wasn't the one making those decisions. And when Gene heard what they were offering him financially, he felt completely disrespected. Think about it from Gone's perspective for a second. He's got footage that nobody else has. He's got first-hand stories from being right next to Diddy during the most important moments in hip-hop history. And they're offering him what he felt was pocket change compared to what this documentary would be worth. So Gene walked away. He said, "No thanks," and refused to participate. But here's where it gets interesting. Gone is now revealing that the documentary didn't just skip him because of money. They also left out massive pieces of evidence that Gene knows about.
Talk about the whole incident of the Quad Studio shit. Like in the documentary, they was talking about that, right? You know what I'm saying? They talked about the Quad Studio shit. But they didn't mention the fact, and they left it out, that Big and C's did not know that Puff and Andre Harrell was in Jimmy Henchman's office the day Pac got killed. I mean, the day Pac got shot at Quad Studio. Let me repeat that again so it don't get mixed up in the whole thing. They did not mention that Andre Harrell and Puff Daddy and Jimmy Henchman were all in the office together. Puff was on the office because he was trying to spy on Big them, because Big was writing the Junior Mafia stuff and Puff had his publishing. I told this to a couple of people before. I said it before, and you got people that's running with it like they knew the story in the whole 9 yards. You understand? They'll lie and you ask them, how do you know that? Who told you? They couldn't even tell you that. They'll tell you some lie, they did some kind of investigation, but it didn't happen like that. You understand? Puff was there to spy on Big because he had owned Big Publishing, and Big had turned around, and the same people who helped Puff get Big Publishing told Big to turn and put Tatiana or put somebody else's name on his publishing, or give it to Lil C's or whoever, this, that, and the third that he wrote for, so he can get the money from it. So that's how that went down. So they was there to spy on Big. In the interim of him being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told him that they finna show Pac, teach Pac a lesson, because Pac had owed him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. Pac owed him some money. He was going to work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman wasn't the type of dude that you talk greasy to, allegedly, unless you're 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was going to happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal with. Yeah, he was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only that to see Big them. When Jimmy Henchman told him that, he was there to see what's going to happen to Pac. He was there for that. Because had he not been there for that, he would have went up there in the office. He would have went to the studio or the studio session with Big them. He would have went to that studio session with Big them. He knew what room Big them was in. He didn't do that. He was there to see what was going to happen to Pac after Jimmy told him. And that's factual.
For example, the documentary talks about the East Coast versus West Coast war, right? But according to Gone, they completely censored the truth about bodyguard Jake Wolf's death. Gene says that Mark Curry knows exactly who killed Jake Wolf. It wasn't some government conspiracy. It was a Jamaican guy from the Bronx who the police ended up killing later at a club called Magic City. Gone also says the whole East Coast versus West Coast war narrative is wrong. It wasn't a regional thing. It was specifically Bad Boy Records versus Death Row Records. It was about Diddy and Suge Knight beefing with each other. East Coast rappers were still going to the West Coast and getting love. West Coast artists were still coming to New York, and everything was cool. But Bad Boy and Death Row, that was real beef. And here's something the documentary completely skipped. Death Row was actually trying to make peace. They wanted to set up a meeting to squash the whole thing between Tupac and Biggie, but Diddy refused to send anyone to the meeting. He wouldn't go himself, and he wouldn't send a representative from Bad Boy. Gone is saying all of this got cut from the documentary. And honestly, I can see why 50 might have been nervous about including it. Because what Gene's really saying is that Diddy could have stopped all of this violence, but he chose not to. Now, let's get into the really explosive stuff. This next part is where things get absolutely crazy. Gone Deal is claiming that Diddy knew Tupac was going to get shot at Quad Studios, and he was literally there to watch it